I think it's going to set new all-time high as well. I think it'll pip over its previous and get to something like 5K. I think those fundamentals start to really ramp in 2026 when the projects we're seeing built really start gaining traction. So yeah, 5,000 you can call me bearish, but it is a new all-time high, and there probably is upside. Look, I think it's going to have a great year. I think it's probably going to outperform ETH. I think 750 could be easy. You could see it get to 1,000. That's certainly not within the realm of craziness. I think stablecoin assets could double, which would put them above 350 billion.
Matt Hougan's optimism about Ethereum stems from two significant catalysts: advancing technology and institutional adoption. He envisions Ethereum overcoming its recent stagnation to surpass its previous highs, potentially reaching $5,000. This bullish outlook is fueled by technological strides in Layer 2 solutions, particularly in Starknet and validity proofs. These innovations are making Ethereum's network faster and more efficient, addressing its long-standing throughput challenges. On the institutional side, Matt highlights the growing involvement of Wall Street in crypto through stablecoins and tokenization projects. He predicts that Ethereum will be at the center of this movement, with headlines featuring major financial institutions like Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan building on Ethereum's infrastructure.
Please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. You can also check out our other videos on cryptocurrencies and the overall digital asset space and drop your comments and observations in the comments section below. Everything you do helps with the YouTube algorithm and immensely contributes to the channel's growth. Thanks and enjoy the video.
I think there are two catalysts for it. The reason I think ETH will stop being the forgotten asset. The first is, I've spent a lot of time on the past few days digging into the layer 2 space and particularly into the sort of the Starknet validity proof side of that spectrum. And it's getting really fast and really efficient. So I really do think we're solving ETH's throughput challenge. And then on the flip side, one of my core beliefs for next year is we're going to see Wall Street come into crypto in a major way through stablecoins, through tokenization projects. The most of that's going to come into ETH. So you have improving technology, and then you have a series of headlines: ETH, 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 ETH and Goldman Sachs, ETH and JP Morgan, ETH and UBS. And I think that's going to be enough to get it out of the doldrums, right? Will it outperform other sort of altcoins, if you want to call them that? I'm not sure. But can it get back to new all-time highs? I think absolutely. But I think the challenge ETH has is it's moved into sort of this fundamental space where it's driven, it's sort of made the transition from being driven by memes and headlines to being driven by fundamental activity. And that's a complex space where you have this challenge of L2 fee compression and burn, right? And once you sort of seen tech companies go through this when they go from pre-revenue to post-revenue, and there's this awkward teenage moment where they're like, if you value them on fundamentals, it doesn't quite add up, but they're not really meme driven. And I think that's where ETH is. I think those fundamentals start to really ramp in 2026 when the projects we're seeing built really start gaining traction. So yeah, 5,000 you can call me bearish, but it is a new all-time high, and there probably is upside. But I think that's the challenge it's going to face next year. Look, I think it's going to have a great year. I think it's probably going to outperform ETH. I think 750 could be easy. You could see it get to 1,000. That's certainly not within the realm of craziness. I think the catalyst for Sol that we're monitoring is it's established this dominant position in sort of the crypto community space, and particularly with meme coins and sort of fun items. I think it's going to add to that more serious projects moving on to a more established Solana ecosystem. We've seen that in the past with things like Render, but I think you're going to see it in an accelerating basis. And if you get sort of dual thrusts, like the fun casino part of crypto or the community part of crypto and the more institutional part of crypto, that's a pretty good narrative to lift it, up to double or triple in the year ahead. ETH is really very close to having solved the blockchain trilemma. Right now, the challenge is just the difficulty of moving across the layer 2 ecosystem. But that's been a goal for public blockchains for years, And it's actually pretty close. And particularly as sort of the validity proofs, mature in the space, I think it's going to do just fine long term. But I agree, it could miss this cycle. It's still substantially bigger than all the other programmable L1s put together, right? I think people think of like ETH and Solana being similar, but actually the relationship is a lot like Bitcoin to ETH, right? These are like nesting Russian dolls that get small really quick. And so you could see Solana pump, you could see Aptos pump, you could see Sui pump, you could see lots of these grow substantially in size and still not quite equal ETH. And I think that's probably what you're going to see. And long term, I agree. I think it's going to come out the other side as one of the major public blockchains that we talk about for the next 30 years. I don't think it's going to be missed or lose out. The people look at the net flows, and we're now in positive net flows, but for a while we were in negative net flows. But they forget that ETH bled, $3.5 billion in assets. And that's a lot to overcome. And I thought because ETH's discount had narrowed long before the ETF launched, that much of the arbitrage activity was already out of the space. And that turned out to be wrong, right? So you had this flood of assets on the downside that reduces the number. If we were here and they were like 3 or 4 billion, it'd be the second most successful ETF launch of all time. And we'd be talking about it as a success. And then the second one is I thought ETH was going to catch a bid, right? This has been a atypical sort of crypto cycle where Bitcoin has accelerated its dominance. And what non-Bitcoin activity there has skipped a generation and hit Sol on down. And when you put those two things together, you get the result that we had. Long term, I'm still bullish. We're excited about our ETF. It's a few $100 million. In the scheme of most ETFs, that would be a massively successful launch. But yeah, it's been much slower than I think most ETF experts sort of anticipated.
Matt highlights the transformative impact of crypto ETF on the market. He believes the crypto space has entered an ETF era with a wide variety of assets expected to gain approval under new regulatory leadership. While he refrains from commenting on specific filings, Matt expresses confidence in the eventual success of these products, citing substantial demand among investors. The launch of Ethereum-based ETF, although slower than anticipated, still represents a major milestone. Matt explains that the market dynamics, including net asset flows and arbitrage activities, have affected the pace of adoption. Despite these challenges, he remains optimistic about the long-term growth of ETF and their role in bringing crypto to mainstream investors.
I think stablecoin assets could double, which would put them above 350 billion. I think there are two primary drivers of this. The one everyone talks about is that we're likely to see stablecoin legislation that allows them to exist in a regulated format in the new Congress. And that will obviously be a dramatic spur to adoption. We're also seeing growth in payments, both globally and domestically. But the other thing I think people overlook is just, stablecoin assets rise when you're in a bull market. That's just always been true. So I think there's a natural bullish push behind stablecoins and then an accelerant from stablecoin legislation. Add them together, I think it's $350 billion by the end of the year. The base case that I use in this is I look in Canada where Fidelity has asset allocation ETFs and they range between 1% and 3% crypto. That doesn't seem crazy, right? What if 1% to 3% crypto becomes the standard in 529 plans, which are the college savings account, in 401k plans, which are the retirement accounts? That's probably more important than institutions deciding onesie twosies whether each one will invest, right? Let's solve this bulk problem. I think it's a big deal. For what it's worth noting, crypto is also exciting in a retirement context because it's a tax protected context, right? And if you're looking at an asset with strong appreciation potential, you want that in a tax deferred setting. So I think this could be a very big unlock if it happens. Maybe it's a long shot. I don't hear other people talking about it, but I'm trying to will it into the world and into the conversation. Yeah, my legal counsel says I can't comment on our specific filing, but I will say, I think we've even before the election, you and I had the conversation. I think we've entered the ETF era of crypto. We're going to get ETFs or ETPs on a wide variety of assets. You have to assume that the election accelerated that dramatically. We're going to get new leadership at the SEC. They're going to be more accommodative. It's impossible to forecast, but we wouldn't have filed if we didn't think we could win approval, right? It takes money and time and effort. So you can read through that we're excited about it. And I think there'll be substantial demand. Like we discussed, people ask us about Solana all the time. It's got a very strong thesis and strong resonance out there in the investor community. And that 95% is going to have to get allocated to crypto. They're going to have to. They're going to have to convince the 95% of the Bitcoin that's already owned to shake loose some Bitcoin or shake loose some crypto. And it's pretty exciting. So that's where that tweet came from re-underwriting the space and coming out the other side even more bullish than I was before. I assumed that they would be interested in ETH because it does have this fundamental building block. We get a lot of questions that skip straight to Solana.
Really?
I think there's an aspect of the institutional investor who crosses the chasm into crypto, into Bitcoin, and then wants to be kind of cool. And it's not that cool to be Bitcoin and ETH. It's like, let's go to what's next. Oh, this Solana thing, Phoenix out of the ashes of FTX. But so we actually do get a fair number of questions about Solana, and I find that surprising, but it is a very real thing. Yeah, we think there'll be another mainstream crypto application that sort of crosses the chasm and gains more than 1 million monthly users. I personally think it's likely to be in the gaming space. I think you're seeing a lot of investment. You're seeing a lot of big names, right? I saw a headline just a few days ago about FIFA and Mythical Games launching FIFA Rivals. You see some first-person shooter stuff. Blockchain has gone from dial-up to broadband, and now we're starting to see developers build in that space. Games are often the first thing to break. So I think there'll be some blockchain-based game that gets really massive, permanent adoption, not just flash in the pan, play to earn adoption, but people using it as primarily a game.
Matt anticipates the emergence of a blockchain-based game that achieves mainstream adoption, surpassing 1 million monthly users. He views gaming as a natural entry point for blockchain technology, drawing parallels to the early days of the internet when games were among the first applications to gain traction. With investments from major brands like FIFA and advancements in blockchain infrastructure, Matt believes the gaming industry is on the brink of a breakthrough. Unlike the fleeting success of play-to-earn models, he expects future blockchain games to prioritize genuine entertainment value, leading to sustainable user growth.
Please like and subscribe my channel.